I just broke a light bulb. What happened? The thing that worked, brought light and comfort, stopped working. From now on, it will be never able to do what it was created for. You may say it's not a problem, because it's just a light bulb, and yes, of course, you are right, but only at first sight. That's because after a while, when I forget about this broken light bulb, something will eventually hurt me. And this something is the shards. Forgotten, invisible, tiny little shards, they will remain lying, and they can never be turned into a new light bulb. They lie just to bring pain. I will tell you a story that has 3 important lessons, and I believe that if you can learn these lessons, it will make your life happier. I am 35 years old. My dad is 85. When I was 6, I realized that my dad and I have quite a strange relationship. He doesn't play with me the way dads usually play with other kids. He doesn't become a child himself for a while when he spends time with me. He is always thoughtful and sad. I came to visit my school friends sometimes, and when we met, I saw the eyes of their parents shone with some kind of magical light, just like the light bulb. And when I realized what I was missing, my heart also broke, just like this light bulb, into small little shards. I suffered without that amazing strength, without the support that children should feel from their parents. After all, this very support gives us a feeling of comfort, security, power, on which we then rely our lives. I built my life without such support. I was alone. I thought my father didn't love me, that he doesn't really care, that he's not my father at all since he acts so coldly with me and does not try to become a part of my childhood world. I felt rejected and unwanted. Do you know what is childish anger? It burns out your feelings and deprives you of rest. There were months when I cried every single day. When I learned about the Second World War at school, we were given a task to talk with relatives who survived the war and tell about their experience in class. I calculated and I realized that when the war began, my dad was 4 years old. 4! He was much younger than me at that moment. I went to my dad and tried to ask him. He replied, "I was evacuated." And he went to work in his room. So I ran to my mom and said, "Well, Dad doesn't want to tell me about the war, but they gave me homework and I have to do it." And then my mom told me. My grandfather fought in the war, and my grandmother and my dad were evacuated to the small town of Shards. They lived in the school building along with other families, elders, women and children. They slept on old mattresses all together, and sometimes they took those mattresses and covered the windows with them. I'll tell you why now, and I hope you will never have to do the same thing in your entire life. Mattresses on the windows were the only defense against airstrikes. Seriously? No. But people believed that these mattresses on the window would save me from the shards, much more dangerous than the shards of a light bulb. So the air fighters were attacking at night because the pilots could see the light in the windows. When there was light, then there were living people, so they were needed to be killed. The mattresses didn't let the light out, so my dad and my grandmother and everyone with whom they spent this terrible time pretended to be dead so as not to die. And every time the bombing began, a loud and terrible sirena was turned on, the signal to put mattresses on the windows and go hide in the basement until the sirena stops. Well, at first, everyone obediently hung up mattresses and went down to the basement. But after a few weeks, they stopped. Do you know why? Because it is better to die having lived a life without fear than to live and always be afraid. And this is the first lesson. My dad, he was just a small kid. And what are the kids doing? All the kids are playing. and my dad also played. But he didn't have toys. So my dad, who was about 5 years old, wandered around the ruined town and collected tin boxes left over from destroyed houses and colored pieces of glass. Shards. He laid these shards out in the pavement, watched them beautifully sparkle in the sun, then collected them in tin boxes and carefully carried home. And that were all the toys that he had. And that was all the childhood that my father had. When I heard this story, my big heart of a child broke down into pieces. I couldn't imagine what my father went through. I failed my homework, and I couldn't tell the story's class because it hurt too much. Eventually, when the war ended, my dad grew up, and he became an amazing person, a professor, a lecturer, a writer. He has taught thousands of students over 60 years of work, and I'm truly proud of him, and I love him very deeply. But my dad and I are still like shards that cannot be put together. We have not been able to share the support, love, and understanding and joy that makes a father-son relationship. Do you know why? You cannot share what you don't have. And you cannot accept something you don't even know about. And this is the second lesson. Everyone knows that war is terrible. Because of the war, people die and go into the past of civilization. We cannot realize all the consequences of our mistakes, but we must learn to correct them. And that is our self-responsibility. And that was the third and the final lesson. My daughter is 7. And the light in my eyes shines brighter than 1,000 light bulbs every time she allows me to be the part of her childhood world. And the last thing I want is a small shard of pain to stick into her heart, staying there for years. I want you to realize right now that war is not only a terrible number of lost lives. There are the shards that remain in the hearts of those who suffered during the war, like my father, and those who suffered after it, like me. When the war ends, we, with great difficulty, and not always successfully, forget about these shards in our hearts and erase the terrible memories of it. And after that, the war starts again. I believe that only by realizing and remembering the real destruction, fear, and pain that come with war, we finally understand that human life is sacred, and therefore we have to treat it with the best care that we can. It is impossible to remove all the shards of once taken pain in one swoop because they are everywhere. Forgotten, invisible, tiny, staying to hurt again. And again, and again. Look into your heart. Perhaps there, deep inside, there is also a small forgotten shard of a long broken light bulb. Find it. Get it out. Get rid of it. Live a better life where the light of your eyes shines brightly, and there will be no place for war.